Okay, moving on to the team that I have finishing third in the Big East. That would be, yes, you guessed it, welcome back, Danny Hurley and the Uconn Huskies. So I just wanted to say before I said anything about Uconn, welcome back to the Big East Huskies. The league is just so much better with you than without you. The fact that Uconn was going the last couple years playing against Houston and Tulsa and East Carolina and Wichita State, let's be honest, no one wanted to watch that. We want to watch UConn play Villanova. We want to watch UConn play against Georgetown. We want to watch UConn play against Providence and some of the other teams in the Big East that they used to rival with back in the day. So I just wanted to say congrats, UConn, back in the Big East. And the great thing about this is this. When you look at UConn, the first year that they were in the American Athletic Conference, we know they won the national championship. Shabazz Napier did it. But then, since then, UConn in the AAC didn't win. I think the coolest thing about UConn moving back to the Big East is the timing within all this. UConn is moving back to the Big East when they're expecting their best basketball season since that national championship and Shabazz Napier, Ryan Boatwright, Kevin Ollie, all that. And the thing that really stands out to me about this UConn Husky team is that there is talent at every position in year three for Coach Dan Hurley. I understand that UConn hasn't even made the NCAA tournament since 2016, which seems crazy when you consider their history. Dan Hurley, he's entering his third year in charge after last year. Let's be honest, UConn was much improved, and for the first time in a while, I actually, sought out time and really was looking forward to watching UConn play basketball. I remember they had a tournament early in the season. I believe it was in South Carolina, and they had like a crazy overtime game against Xavier. Najee Marshall hit a crazy shot to put the game in overtime. And I just remember watching that game. They also had a game against Indiana at Madison Square Garden. And I was just like, all right, it's cool to have UConn back. And that feeling is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger once we get used to the fact that they are back in the Big East. So UConn, it's a big year for Dan Hurley because I was a huge Danny Hurley fan while he was at the University of Rhode Island. I think he's done a really good job so far as the UConn coach. I understand the wins haven't been there yet, but don't worry, they are coming soon. I don't know how you could be a UConn fan and not feel very optimistic about the direction that this program is going in. And I think it starts with last year because UConn closed out last season 8-2 in their last 10 and won their last 5 games in the American Athletic Conference. I remember they had a big win over Memphis, which was really fun to watch. And UConn really ended their season last year well. When you look at this year's UConn team, though, you have to start with James Bouknight. It's hard to emphasize just how high I am on James Bouknight. This guy's 6'4", and he was third-team All-AAC and All-Freshman member last year. And I think this year, he could win Big East Player of the Year, and he's phenomenal. He could handle the ball. He could score from anywhere. He's a little skinny, but he's athletic, and he just has so much potential. The entire country should know his name now, because by the time the end of the season comes, mark my words, he's going to be a household name in college basketball, especially that UConn is now back in the Big East. He only averaged 13 points a game last year as a freshman, and when I say only, it's not like it's bad, but people are going to be like, Zach, how could you say that a freshman who averaged 13 points per game last year is all of a sudden going to break out and be a star and play in the NBA? I'm telling you, just watch. Bouknight also missed the beginning of last season, so he was kind of held back from the beginning. If he would have played a full season last year, he would have been even better by the time the season ended. UConn fans do remember that Bouknight got hurt early in the season, he was suspended early in the season last year and missed the first handful of games. Here's the other thing about UConn that is another reason why I really like them. I think Altuari Gilbert sucked, and him being gone is a good thing. And I hate to say it, I'm not trying to be hard on him, but he just wasn't very good. And Danny Hurley was so loyal to him that you could ask any UConn fan, he cost them games last year. He would take dumb shots. He would turn the ball over in the worst of times. And I actually remember vividly when James Bouknight first came back from that suspension, I just remember screaming at my TV and saying, yo, Coach Hurley, I love you, but Altuve Gilbert isn't good. Get James Bouknight in the game. And the fact that Altuve Gilbert now transferred out, he's at Wichita State right now, and James Bouknight is going to be the starting point guard, and everyone is the starting two guard, and really the whole offense is going to revolve around him. If I'm a UConn fan, that is just a great sign. The other thing that I'm really looking forward to seeing about this UConn team is that they have two transfers who I think complement James Bouknight very well. Tyrese Martin and RJ Cole are both really good. It looks like Tyrese Martin is going to be eligible to play this season. He gets the waiver. Martin played at Rhode Island last season. He averaged 12.8 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 1 assist, 1 steal, and I think he could be a very big part of this Husky team for the upcoming season. The other question I have for this UConn team is this. What is RJ Cole going to look like? He is the other transfer, and right now I think I'm going to project him coming off the bench, but he could play. He could really shoot. He's a transfer from Howard. He averaged 21.4 points per game 2 years ago in 18-19, 4 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, 2 steals per game. So obviously coming up from Howard and playing in the Big East, it's obviously going to be different. But I'm looking forward to see what exactly RJ Cole could do and what exactly his role is now that you also have Tyrese Martin in the fold for this UConn team. The other question is, who is the point guard going to be? RJ Cole can play point guard, but Jalen Gaffney was very good down the stretch last year for UConn. I think UConn was at their best last year when Gaffney was out there at the 1 and Bouknight was out there at the 2. So the question is, how does Dan Hurley manage his rotation here? Does he start RJ Cole? Or does he want him as instant offense coming off the bench? I think that's going to be a big question for this UConn team to ultimately answer. The other kid I wanted to talk a little bit about is Andre Jackson. He's a top 50 freshman that a lot of UConn fans are very high on. I've seen a little bit of him. I love his athleticism. I think he's kind of a year away with all the depth UConn has. I think if he was on a team that didn't have a lot of depth, he would be, ready to play and he'd be pretty good. But I do think this season, when you look at all the different pieces that UConn has, especially with all the experience they have, it's going to be hard for a freshman to come on the floor and get some big-time minutes. I'm going to be curious to see, who does Dan Hurley play first? Andre Jackson or a kid like Isaiah Whaley, who only averaged 6 and 5 last year, but you could ask any UConn fan, he was a big reason as to why UConn was so successful towards the back end of last season when they went 8 and 2, as I mentioned in the beginning of this segment. So Andre Jackson, he's going to be another kid to watch. Another kid I really like for UConn that I think could really play, that I think is very underrated, is Brandon Adams. This is a kid that could really shoot the ball. Last year, when you look at it, he averaged 7.4 points per game, 2.2 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game, and about half a steal per game. He could really shoot and is probably UConn's best all-around shooter. Him or Tyler Polley. I'm also curious to see how exactly Dan Hurley balances his starting lineup because he just has so many different options out there. He could play, I think if you're a UConn fan, he's going to play Gaffney and Bouknight, but then you could play an Adams with them. You could play a Cole with them. You could play an Andre Jackson with them if you want a little more athleticism. You could play an Isaiah Whaley. And then when you look at this front court, they have Tyler Polley and Josh Carlton. Now, Tyler Polley is coming off a torn ACL, so I'm going to be curious to see if he's 100% healthy and ready to go. But he's another guy that had good size and was really able to shoot the ball last year for this UConn Husky team. And also they have a freshman coming in, big man, Adama Sonogo. It's going to be interesting to see if he could get himself on the floor. Right now, Josh Carlton, experienced big man, I would have him as the starting 5. But Danny Hurley has a lot of depth here, and I haven't mentioned Akua Cook, who got hurt last year. He tore his Achilles in February. I would have a hard time believing that in this pandemic offseason he's going to play. But hey, if he does, all credit to him. When he's right and when he's healthy, Akua Cook is a special player. So I just hope he gets healthy, ready to go as soon as possible. I think when you look at this UConn team, right, you have Cole, Bouknight, Martin, Polley, Carlton. That would be my starting five, assuming Tyler Polley's healthy. I think that gives you a really good mix of depth, experience, and talent. And there are so many depth guys and so many guys with different roles on this Uconn team, which is why I like these Huskies so much. They are built for a really good season, and they're built to make the NCAA tournament. And anything less than that, I think, if I were a Uconn Husky fan, would be disappointing. Uconn, I think, has the highest upside into like a top 25 team out of any team in the 3 through 7 range of the Big East. And we're going to get to them in a little bit. But that's why I'm so high on Uconn, and I have them at number 3. I think that with their talent and their coaching, they have a higher ceiling than everyone else kind of in this tier in the Big East. Without giving it away, I'll give you some of the other teams I have in this tier. I think Marquette is in this tier. I think Providence is in this tier. I think Seton Hall is in this tier. Not in that order. You guys will obviously know that as the podcast goes along. But I just think that UConn has a really high ceiling and they have a lot of raw talent. Rank those four teams: Seton Hall, UConn, Marquette, and Providence. If you want to play along at home. I think offensively, the Huskies get a lot of points via the offensive glass, which makes, since given their size up front, that makes sense. They're not a very good outside shooting team, but they do look to attack the basket off the dribble and earn trips to the foul line, usually in like 4-out sets. I think RJ Cole will be UConn's best shooter. Bouknight, Adams, and Gaffney are obviously going to need to improve if the Huskies are going to be taken as big-time threats to shoot the three. But I do see the potential. I like some of the other teams in the Big East with Providence, Seton Hall, Marquette, and I do think the Huskies will be right in that mix. I'm going to pick them to finish third and earn an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament. I would say like around an 8-9 seed. And if you're Dan Hurley, given what UConn has been as a program over the last couple years, that would be a sign of a successful season. And I'm really looking forward to watching UConn back in the Big East. And I'm just happy for them, and I'm happy for the Big East as a whole.